So the blood circulates all throughout the body, right? Now, how does circulation, right, the circulation of the blood, help a person to maintain body temperature? So think about it this way. So let's suppose it's very cold, right? So take a look at your palms. Let's suppose it's very cold. What happens to your palms? Well, you'll notice that your palms or your skin is probably going to become, very white, right? Now, let's suppose it's very warm. What's going to happen? Well, your palms or your skin is going to turn, kind of a reddish color. So why is that happening? That's happening because the body uses the blood in order to help maintain temperature. Let's suppose it becomes very, very hot outside, right? Well, the body recognizes that, okay, the body is starting to, increase in temperature. It doesn't want the temperature to increase too much, right? You want to maintain kind of a good temperature. So when the temperature goes up too much, the body sends more blood to the skin, right? It sends more blood to the skin when it gets hot. And from the skin, the heat escapes to the surrounding air, and that helps to cool the body back down. Now, let's suppose it becomes cold outside, right? What's going to happen? The body realizes that, okay, if I send out blood to the skin, I'm going to lose too much heat, and it's already cold. So I don't want to lose any heat. I want to maintain the heat that I have. So it stops the blood vessels that are going to the skin from sending too much blood there. And so you see that your palms become white or your skin becomes white. And so the body stops the blood from going to the skin because it wants to maintain the heat that's in the blood. Let's take a look at a couple of diseases of the cardiovascular system. So one disease is called atherosclerosis, right? So what is this disease? Atherosclerosis. So take a look at this picture down here. So what do you notice about the two different arteries? Remember, the arteries take blood away from the heart. So what do you notice about these two different arteries? Well, the one on the left is the normal artery, and the one on the right is the diseased artery. So in the normal artery, it's very open, right? There's not a lot of junk that's built up inside of this artery, and so blood can go through very quickly, very easily. The artery on the right, is filled with all kinds of junk inside of here. And so blood has a very difficult time going through this artery. So this kind of junk is called plaque. And so when this builds up, this damages the artery and stops blood from going through quickly. So what is this plaque made of? It's made of cholesterol and other kinds of lipids. There are different kinds of, fatty kinds of substances. So fat and cholesterol, stuff like that builds up and causes this artery to become narrow, and so blood cannot get through. And so sometimes and so this is called atherosclerosis. And so sometimes it gets, the entire vessel can get blocked up. And so in that case, no blood can go through at all. And so when that happens, a person can get a stroke or a heart attack. Hypertension, right? So what is hypertension? Hypertension is high blood pressure, right? So pressure is basically like a force that some fluid or liquid exerts. So for example, let's suppose the tires on your car, these start to have low pressure, right? So what does that mean? It means that if you press up against the tire, you'll notice that it kind of bends in, right? It's not going to be full of air. So when that happens, then you take the air pump and you fill it back up with air. So the pressure of air inside of your tire, you don't want it to be too low, you don't want it to be too high. If the pressure becomes too high, what happens? Well, the tire could rupture. So same thing when it comes to the blood. You want the pressure inside of your blood vessels to not be too high and not be too low. If it's too low, then the blood cannot go to where it needs to go. if it becomes too high, that high blood pressure, just like a high air pressure inside of a tire, that can cause damage to the blood vessels. Heart attacks and strokes. So remember we talked about atherosclerosis, right? We talked about this thing here where, blood vessels can get blocked up. So if it gets too blocked up, then blood cannot go through. And whatever is on the other side over here is not going to be able to get enough oxygen. So suppose that happens in the brain, right? Let's suppose one of these blood vessels in here gets blocked up and, this part of the brain just, cannot get any more oxygen. Well, what's going to happen? That part of the brain is going to die because it's not getting enough oxygen. So that's called a stroke. Now, if the same thing happens in the heart, that's called a heart attack, right? Let's suppose one of these vessels gets blocked. And so this heart muscle over here, is not going to be getting that blood and therefore not going to be getting that oxygen. And so this part of the heart dies. So that's called a heart attack. So a heart attack occurs in the heart. A stroke occurs in the brain.